The phone rang at 12:07 a.m., sharp and insistent against the quiet hum of the ER break room. Amara Singh was halfway through a cold cup of coffee and charting vitals on a patient who had mistaken laundry detergent for sports drink. The caller ID showed an unknown Washington state number. She almost let it go to voicemail. Nobody good calls the trauma bay at midnight, but something in her gut tugged. She pressed accept. Hello? A woman's voice, thin and trembling like dry leaves. Hello? Is this the temple? Amara frowned. Ma, this is Harborview ER. Are you hurt? Silence. Then a shaky breath. I think I dialed wrong. Sorry. They told me to press redial if I needed help, but I don't remember who they are. Amara's nurse instincts kicked in. That S okay? Can you tell me your name? Evelyn. Evelyn Hart. I'm 82 and I am scared. A crash in the background glass shattering. Evelyn's voice pitched higher. They're here. They found the house. Please, the map if they get the map. Another crash. Closer. Evelyn whimpered. Stay with me. Where are you? 1997. Cliffside Drive, the old house at the end, please. They're coming for the map. The line went dead. Amara stared at the black screen. Her charge nurse, Marcus, looked up from his sandwich. Wrong number? She said someone was breaking in. Gave an address? Marcus snorted. Probably drunk or dementia. Call non-emergency. Let cops handle it. Amara was already grabbing her keys. She sounded terrified. And she knew my number somehow. Marcus rolled his eyes. You're off in 20 minutes anyway. Don T, do anything stupid. Too late. 1997. Cliffside Drive was an hour north, past the city lights, where the Olympic Peninsula drops straight into the sea. Amara drove her dented Civic with the wipers on high, rain hammering the roof like it wanted in. The road narrowed, twisted, climbed. Every mile the signal bars on her phone dropped until they vanished completely. She almost turned back twice. Then the headlights caught the number on a leaning mailbox. 1997. The house loomed at the edge of the cliff, like something out of a Gothic novel, 3 stories of peeling turquoise paint, turrets sagging, windows dark, except for one on the second floor flickering with what might have been candlelight. Black SUVs, 2 of them, sat in the gravel drive, doors open, interior lights glowing red. Men in dark raincoats moved between the vehicles and the shattered front door. Amara killed her headlights and coasted to a stop 50 yards back, heart slamming against her ribs. This was insane. She should call 911. She reached for her phone, no signal. A scream cut through the rain, high, frail, unmistakably Evelyn. Amara was out of the car before her brain caught up, sneakers slipping on wet gravel. Hospital badge still clipped to her scrub top like some useless shield. She circled wide, staying in the tree line, until she found a side entrance half hidden under ivy. The door hung open, glass panes smashed. Inside smelled of salt air, old books, and something metallic blood. She moved on instinct, the way she moved through trauma bays. Quiet, fast, purposeful. A long hallway, portraits staring down with eyes too real. A grandfather clock frozen at 12:07. At the end, a grand staircase lit by swaying flashlights from the floor above. Another scream closer now. Amara took the servants' stairs 2 at a time, lungs burning. Second floor landing. A door ajar spilled warm candlelight, and the low murmur of men's voices, rough, impatient, accented. She slipped inside. The room was a library gone mad, books torn from shelves, drawers upended, maps and charts scattered like fallen leaves. In the center, tied to an antique chair with silk rope, sat Evelyn Hart. She was tiny, bird-boned, white hair escaping a long braid, nightgown soaked with rain and blood from a cut on her forehead. Her eyes sharp, fierce, sea-green locked on Amara the second she appeared. In her lap, clutched like a child, was a rolled oil painting the length of a poster, edges gilded, canvas cracked with age. One of the men, tall, scarred, rain dripping from a black hood, leaned in close. Last chance, old woman. Where is the real map? Evelyn S. voice came out steady despite the blood trickling into her eye. I burned it decades ago. You're wasting your night. The man raised a hand to strike her. Amara stepped forward without thinking. Touch her, and I'll make sure every cop in the state knows exactly what you look like. Four heads snapped toward her. Guns appeared faster than she could blink. Evelyn S. eyes widened not in fear, but recognition. You came, she breathed. The temple sent you. The scarred man smiled, cold and slow. Wrong number, little nurse. Walk away. Amara S. pulse thundered in her ears, but her voice stayed level, the same voice that calmed panicked parents and dying patients. I am not leaving without her. Scarred man shrugged, lifted his gun. Evelyn moved faster than any 82-year-old should. She yanked a golden letter opener from her sleeve and slashed the silk ropes, lunged for a floor lamp, and swung it like a sword. The heavy base cracked against the nearest man's knee. He went down howling. Chaos exploded. Amara grabbed a bronze bookend shaped like a ship and hurled it at the second gunman. It caught him in the temple. Evelyn was already at the window, shoving it open, rain gusting in. Balcony! She shouted. Now! Amara vaulted over a fallen chair, snatched the rolled painting when Evelyn thrust it at her, and followed the old woman out into the storm. They slid down a drainage pipe slick as ice, hit the wet grass running. Behind them, shouts and flashlight beams sliced the dark. Evelyn actually sprinted toward a detached garage, half collapsed under ivy. She threw open the doors to reveal a vintage bottle green Jaguar that looked older than both of them combined. Get in! Amara dove into the passenger seat. Evelyn slid behind. The wheel turned the key. The engine roared to life like it had been waiting 80 years for this exact moment. Tires spun on gravel. Headlights flared. The Jaguar shot forward, fishtailing down the cliff road as bullets pinged off the rear bumper. Evelyn gripped the wheel with both hands, eyes wild and bright. Whatever happens, she shouted over the storm and the engine, promise me you'll take the painting to Varkala, to the temple on the cliff. Promise me. Amara clutched the rolled canvas to her chest, rain whipping through the open window, adrenaline singing in her veins. I promise. Behind them, black SUVs roared in pursuit. Ahead, the dark coastal highway stretched like an unrolled map leading straight into the unknown. And in the passenger seat of a car older than her mother, a 25-year-old nurse who had answered the wrong number at midnight realized the night was only just beginning. The Jaguar flew down the cliffside highway like a green comet, wipers barely keeping up with the rain. Evelyn drove with both hands white on the wheel, eyes flicking between the road and the rearview mirror, where two sets of headlights grew larger every second. Hold tight, child, she said, voice steady despite the blood drying on her temple. This old girl still has some tricks. She yanked the wheel hard left onto a dirt track Amara hadn't even seen. Branches scraped the sides like claws. The SUVs tried to follow, one skidding, crashing into a tree with a sickening crunch. The second kept coming. Evelyn floored it. The track spat them out onto a narrow logging road, then onto the main coastal highway. She didn't slow until the remaining SUVs lights vanished in the mirror. Only then did she pull over under a stand of dripping cedars, kill the engine, and sag against the seat. Silence rushed in, broken only by rain on the metal roof and their ragged breathing. Amara's hands shook so hard the rolled painting rattled. Evelyn turned to her, eyes luminous in the dashboard glow. You came, she repeated, softer now. I dialed the last number in my address book because my fingers wouldn't work anymore. I thought it was the temple in Varkala. It was you. She reached over, cupped Amara's cheek with a trembling, blood-flecked hand. My name is Evelyn Hart, but I was born Evelyn Varma in Kerala, India, in 1942. That painting you are holding isn't a painting. It is a promise. She took a shaky breath. In 1624, a Portuguese trading ship carrying the dowry of a Kerala princess, gold rubies, sacred jewels, meant for an orphanage temple vanished in a storm. My ancestors were the temple guardians. 300 years later, the shipwreck was found off these very shores. My grandfather, a cartographer, painted over the original treasure chart to hide it from colonial thieves. Layer by layer, generation by generation, we kept it safe. Evelyn S. fingers brushed the canvas. Those men tonight are descendants of the pirates who sank the ship. They've hunted my family for centuries. My brother died protecting it. My daughter, she ran and never came back. I am the last. Tears cut clean tracks through the blood on her face. I am dying, Amara. Heart gave out months ago. Doctors said any day now. I just needed one more night to get the map to safety. I thought ID failed. She pressed the rolled painting into Amara S. hands like passing a torch. The real map is under the top layer of paint. Moonlight and seawater reveal it, an old Kerala trick. Take it home, to Varkale, to the Janardana temple on the cliff. Give it to the head priest. Tell him the guardianess daughter kept her word. Amara stared at the canvas, then at the old woman, who had just outrun armed men in a car older than most countries. I am a nurse, Evelyn, not Indiana Jones. Evelyn laughed bright, surprised young. You answered a stranger at midnight. You fought for an old woman you'd never met. You're exactly who the temple has been waiting for. Headlights flashed far behind them, distant, but coming. Evelyn started the engine again. We have maybe an hour before they regroup. My cottage is 20 minutes north. Safe enough for tonight. Tomorrow you fly to India. IV arranged everything passport pouch under the seat. Cash, tickets, first class because guardians travel in style. Amara found the leather pouch, opened it. Plane ticket Seattle to Thiruvananthapuram via Doha, dated tomorrow. $50,000 in mixed currencies. A small gold pendant shaped like a lotus, and a handwritten note in spidery script. If you're reading this, I am gone. Thank you for giving an old woman one last adventure. Finish what we started. The girls are waiting. The cottage appeared suddenly, a tiny cedar shaker perched over the water, hidden from the road by trees. Inside smelled of cardamom and salt. One room, one bed, one kerosene lamp already lit, as if someone knew they were coming. Evelyn sank into the only armchair, exhaustion finally winning. Amara knelt, checked the cut on her forehead shallow, already clotting. You need a hospital. No hospitals. They'll find me. Evelyn S. eyes drifted shut. Just stay till morning. That is all I ask. Amara built up the fire, wrapped Evelyn in every blanket, sat on the floor beside the chair with the painting across her lap. Outside, waves crashed against rocks like the ocean itself was standing guard. Inside, the lamp burned low, casting gold over two women who had been strangers 12 hours ago and were now bound by something older than blood. Evelyn S. breathing slowed, deepened. At some point, her hand found Amara S. and held on. Amara didn't sleep. She watched the firelight dance across the rolled canvas and felt the weight of 400 years settle gently on her shoulders. The storm moved on. Dawn painted the sea rose in gold. And in a tiny cottage at the edge of the world, a dying guardian passed the torch to a nurse who had answered the wrong number at midnight, knowing the right person always does. The first gunshot shattered the cottage window at 4:58 a.m., exactly when the sky turned the color of weak tea. Amara jerked awake from the floor, heart exploding against her ribs. Evelyn was already up, impossibly fast, dragging a wooden sea chest from under the bed with strength that belonged to someone 40 years younger. Time to go, she said, calm as sunrise. Another bullet punched through the wall, showering them with splinters. Amara grabbed the rolled painting. Evelyn shoved a small canvas duffel into her arms. Inside, passport, cash, a change of clothes, and a revolver older than both of them combined. No, Amara said, pushing the gun back. I save lives, I don't take them. Evelyn S. eyes softened. Then run fast. They burst out the back door into salt air and dawn mist. The Jaguar waited under a camouflage tarp, engine already warm. Evelyn must have started it hours ago. They dove in as black SUVs roared up the narrow track, headlights cutting through the fog like knives. Evelyn reversed down a goat path Amara hadn't noticed, tires spinning on wet pine needles, then shot forward onto the highway doing 90 before the seatbelt lights stopped flashing. The chase lasted 43 breathless minutes. They flew north on Highway 101, the ocean on their left a sheet of hammered silver, redwoods on their right standing guard. The SUVs stayed close, ramming the bumper once, twice. Evelyn swerved like a rally driver, grinning through blood-cracked lips. "Hold the painting tight," she shouted over the roar. "It has been through worse storms than this." Amara clutched it to her chest and used her free hand to call 911 on Evelyn's ancient flip phone. Finally, a bar of signal. She gave the dispatcher mile markers and license plates, while Evelyn took a sudden exit onto a logging road that wasn't TT on any map. The SUVs overshot, brakes screaming. Evelyn didn't slow until they reached a deserted beach parking lot hemmed by dunes. She killed the engine behind a rusted fishing shack, grabbed the duffel, and pulled Amara out. "Boat," she panted. "My brother kept one for emergencies." A 12-foot aluminum skiff waited under a blue tarp, half hidden in seagrass. They dragged it into the surf, waves soaking them to the waist. Evelyn started the tiny outboard on the third pull. They shot away from shore as the SUVs screeched into the lot, men leaping out, guns raised. Bullets skipped across the water like angry hornets. Evelyn steered straight into the rising sun, hands steady on the tiller. An hour later, they beached on a tiny uninhabited island Evelyn called Smuggler S Rest. Driftwood shelter, freshwater spring, a cave no chart showed. She had prepared this place decades ago, waiting for a night exactly like this one. Inside the cave, safe for the first time in hours, Evelyn sank onto a camp stool and finally let exhaustion win. Amara built a small fire with driftwood and the emergency matches she found in the duffel. The painting lay between them, still rolled, still perfect. Evelyn stared into the flames. "I was 12 when my father showed me how to read the map beneath the paint," she said softly. "We used moonlight and seawater from the Arabian Sea. Same water, different ocean. It will work here too." She looked at Amara with eyes that had seen empires fall. "Show me the moon is strong enough tonight." They waited until the sun bled out and the sky turned indigo. Then they carried the painting to the cave mouth, where moonlight poured in like liquid silver. Evelyn filled a tin cup from the spring, added a pinch of salt from a hidden jar, and sprinkled the canvas. Nothing for a long moment. Then the top layer of oil paint began to shimmer, dissolve, run in tiny rivulets that caught the moonlight and glowed. Beneath it faint at first, lines appeared inked in gold and indigo that no 400-year-old pigment should still possess. A coastline, a cliff temple, a hidden cove marked with a lotus, coordinates written in old Malayalam script, the real map. Evelyn traced it with a trembling finger. "Varkala," she breathed. "The cave opens only at low tide during monsoon. You'll have one chance." Amara stared, awe stealing her voice. Evelyn's hand found hers across the glowing canvas. "I want to make it to India, child. My heart is done running. But you will." She pressed the lotus pendant into Amara's palm. "Wear this. The temple will know you were sent by a guardian." Footsteps crunched outside, heavy, deliberate. Evelyn smiled, peaceful now. "They found us faster than I hoped. But the map is awake. Promise me again." Amara gripped the pendant until it bit into her skin. "I promise." Evelyn lay back against the cave wall, eyes on the moonlit sea. Then let an old woman rest. "You take the skiff at dawn. Head south to the marina. Tickets are still good. The ocean will hide you." Her breathing slowed. Amara sat beside her, holding the hand that had steered them through fire. Outside, waves sang against the rocks. Inside the cave, moonlight painted guardian and air in silver, the ancient map glowing between them like a star that refused to die. And when Evelyn Hart slipped away just before sunrise, still smiling, still holding tight, she took nothing with her except the certainty that the promise would be kept. The chase was over. The real journey had just begun. Dawn broke over Smuggler's Rest in streaks of rose and gold, finding Amara alone on the sand with Evelyn's body wrapped gently in the old woman's sewn shawl. The map painting lay rolled and rewrapped in oilskin beside her, glowing faintly even in daylight, as if the moonlight had decided to stay inside it. The tiny skiff bobbed at anchor. The black SUVs were gone. Their drivers had found only an empty cave and footprints leading nowhere. Amara pressed the lotus pendant to her lips, whispered, "Thank you," in Malayalam she barely remembered from childhood visits to her grandmother, and pushed the boat into the surf. She reached the mainland marina by 7, slipped the skiff into an empty berth, and walked straight to the ferry terminal. No one looked twice at the exhausted young woman in salt-stiff clothes, carrying a canvas tube like a fishing rod. By noon, she was on a flight to Doha, then Thiruvananthapuram, the painting never leaving her lap. She slept in snatches, dreaming of green cliffs and an old woman driving a jaguar through fire. The pirates, however, had not given up. They were waiting in Doha during the layover, 2 men in expensive linen suits pretending to read newspapers. Amara spotted them because one had the same scar across his knuckles she remembered from the cliff house. She slipped into the women's prayer room, changed into the spare salwar kameez from Evelyn's duffel, tied her hair under a dupatta, and walked out past them without a flicker. They never saw her leave. She landed in Kerala at dusk, monsoon clouds already gathering like old friends. Varkala was 2 hours north by taxi. The driver, a cheerful man named Raju, who called every woman Chechi, took one look at the lotus pendant when she showed it to him and grew quiet. "That belongs to the temple guardians," he said. "You are expected." He refused payment. The Janardana temple sat on the red cliffs above the Arabian Sea, exactly as the hidden map promised, golden lights flickering against the coming storm. Amara climbed the stone steps in bare feet, painting clutched to her chest, rain starting to fall in fat, warm drops. At the top, an old priest in saffron waited beneath the archway, eyes closed, palms pressed together. When he opened them, they went straight to the lotus pendant. "You are the one Evelyn Amma sent," he said in perfect English. "We felt her leave this morning." The bells rang on their own. He led her past courtyards filled with oil lamps and the scent of jasmine, past murals of ancient ships and princesses, into the inner sanctum where only guardians were ever allowed. There he unrolled the painting on a stone table carved with lotuses. Moonlight wasn't tea needed here. The temple itself seemed to breathe light. The driver Raju and 3 young temple orphans, girls in white mundus, gathered silently. The priest poured seawater from a silver pot over the canvas. The top layer dissolved like sugar, revealing the glowing map in full, a perfect chart of the Chi coastline, a hidden cove marked with a ruby lotus, and beneath it, in Evelyn's handwriting that had appeared only now, "For the girls who will never have dowries of their own. Let them marry hope instead. Evelyn Varma Hart, last guardian." The priest, his eyes filled. 400 years, he whispered. "We thought the dowry was legend. Come." They left at low tide, the storm held back by some older magic. A small wooden boat waited below the cliffs. The orphans rowed. Amara sat in the bow, clutching the empty oilskin, the lotus pendant warm against her heart. The cove opened like a secret mouth. Red cliffs, black sand, waves retreating just enough. Inside, torchlight revealed chests bound in iron and coral, lids sealed with wax the color of dried blood. The priest broke the first seal. Gold coins from Portuguese galleons spilled out, glinting. Rubies the size of quail eggs. Emerald beads carved with tiny elephants. Sacred statues meant for the temple orphanage that had waited centuries for its brides. Enough to fund orphan girls' education, weddings, dreams, forever. The orphans gasped, then laughed, then cried. Amara stood in the center, soaked, shaking, paint flakes still on her fingers from the dissolving canvas. The priest placed a saffron shawl around her shoulders and pressed his forehead to hers. Evelyn Amma had no daughter of blood, he said. Tonight, the temple adopts you. You are guardian now. He hung a second lotus pendant around her neck, twin to Evelyn S. Outside, thunder rolled, but the rain held off until the last chest was carried up the cliff. When the storm finally broke, it felt like the sky itself was washing the world clean. Amara stood on the temple steps at midnight, exactly 24 hours after a wrong number call, and watched the Arabian Sea roar its approval. The painting was gone, its duty complete, but the map had found its way home. And a 25-year-old nurse who had never left the country before this week became the newest link in a chain 4 centuries long. The secret in the paint was safe at last, and the real treasure had never been gold. 1 year later, on the exact midnight that changed everything, the bells of Janardhana Temple rang 12 times across the cliffs of Varkala, slow, deep, and full of joy. Amara Singh, now Amara Varma Hart in every way that mattered, stood barefoot on the temple steps in a simple white mundu, lotus pendant catching moonlight like a small star against her collarbone. The saffron shawl from her adoption night was draped over her shoulders, edges embroidered with tiny ships by the temple girls themselves. Behind her, the courtyard overflowed with light, hundreds of clay lamps floating in brass bowls, children's laughter rising with the scent of jasmine and rain-soaked earth. Every orphan girl the dowry had ever been meant for, and hundreds more, stood in 2 shining rows, wearing new silk and marigold garlands, eyes bright as the rubies now safely locked in the temple vault. The head priest raised his hands. "Tonight we honor 2 guardians," he announced, voice carrying over the waves. Evelyn Varma Hart, who kept the promise across oceans and lifetimes, and Amara, the stranger who answered a midnight call and carried the flame home. He turned to Amara. "Child of our heart, step forward." She did, knees trembling the same way they had the night she first climbed these steps, soaked in monsoon and grief. The priest placed a second pendant around her neck. This one carved from a single piece of the shipwreck's teak, polished smooth by 4 centuries of tides. Twin lotuses now rested over her heart. From this night, he said, "You are guardian of the dawn. The dowry will educate, clothe, and marry every girl who needs it until the sea itself runs dry." The girls rushed forward in a wave of silk and flowers, throwing marigold petals that stuck to Amara's wet cheeks. Someone started singing the old guardian lullaby Evelyn used, to hum in the jaguar. Within seconds, the entire courtyard joined, voices rising over the Arabian Sea like a promise kept. Later, when the lamps burned low and the children finally slept on mats under the stars, Amara walked alone to the cliff edge where the hidden cove lay far below, black water glittering. She carried Evelyn's empty oilskin tube, now lined with silk and filled with letters from every girl the treasure had helped. She opened it, let the letters fly into the wind. They fluttered like white birds before vanishing into the night. A soft voice spoke behind her. "You kept your word, my brave girl." Amara turned, breath catching. The moonlight on the water shaped itself for one heartbeat into Evelyn. 82 and strong, braid swinging, eyes sea green and laughing, before dissolving into silver foam. Amara smiled through tears. "I had the best teacher," she whispered. The waves answered with a sound like distant jaguar engines. Years turned into decades. The dowry chest never emptied. Every time one was opened for a girl's wedding or education, another appeared beneath the temple floor as if the sea itself kept refilling them. Scholars called it miracle. The girls called it Evelyn Amma watching over them. Amara never married in the usual sense. Her heart already belonged to 1,000 daughters. But every year, on that midnight, she stood on the cliff in white and saffron while the bells rang 12 times, and the temple adopted another guardian in training. She grew older, hair silver as moonlight, eyes still sharp as the night she fought with a bronze bookend. Children called her Amara Amma now, and when they asked how the treasure never ran out, she told them the same thing Evelyn once told her. Love that travels 400 years doesn't know how to stop giving. On the 50th anniversary of the Midnight Call, the temple unveiled a new mural on the sanctuary wall. Evelyn in her Jaguar, Wind in her white braid, and Amara in the passenger seat clutching the painting, both of them laughing into the storm. Beneath it, in gold letters, they were strangers for 12 hours. They became family forever. That night, the bells rang not 12 times, but 13. One extra for the girl who answered when the world hung up. And somewhere across the ocean, in a quiet Seattle ER break room that no longer existed, a phone that hadn't rung in 50 years gave one soft, impossible chime at 12:07 a.m., just to say thank you. Amara heard it in her heart, smiled at the moon, and walked back to the temple where her daughters waited with lamps and marigolds. The wrong number had found its way home. The map was complete, and the guardian who started as a stranger became the legend that would never end.